Welcome to Vivid Verses. If our words resonate with you, please subscribe, tap the like, and share your thoughts and your feelings in the comments. Now let's begin. The invitation specified black tie optional, which is a social IQ test disguised as a dress code. If you view the tuxedo as optional, you've already signaled that you do not understand the room. In the circles I operate in, specifically high-volume logistics and distressed asset mergers, you wear the uniform. You do not deviate. Deviation requires explanation, and explanation is a waste of time. I adjust to the cufflinks. Onyx. Simple. The goal is to look expensive but boring. You want to look like the man who signs the checks, not the man who is trying to sell your crypto scheme. My apartment was quiet. It's a pre-war Classic 6 on the Upper East Side, chosen not for its charm, but for its resale value and proximity to the FDR Drive. Efficiency is the primary metric of my life. The furniture is Italian, low profile, uncomfortable enough to discourage guests from staying too long. Vanessa was in the bathroom. The door was open. This was calculated. She was in the final stages of getting ready, a process that had already consumed 90 minutes of the evening. She was applying lipstick in the mirror, leaning forward, checking the angles. I watched her from the hallway. Vanessa is 28. She works in PR for a boutique firm that handles crisis management for C-list celebrities. Her job is to spin bad behavior into sympathy. My job is to move shipping containers through geopolitical choke points. We deal in different types of reality. She was wearing a dress that cost more than my first car. It was emerald green, silk backless. It was designed to maximize attention and minimize the wearer's ability to breathe. It was a sunk cost I was willing to absorb because, optically, she balances me. I am severe, monochromatic, and silent. She is vibrant, loud, and tactile. Together, we look like a complete portfolio. "Zip me," she said. She didn't turn around. She watched me in the mirror. I walked in. The air smelled of hairspray and burnt wiring. Some heat styling tool she'd left plugged in. I unplugged it before I touched the zipper. Risk mitigation. I pulled the zipper up. It tracked smoothly. Her skin was warm. She leaned back against me, checking my reflection. "You look severe," she said. "I look appropriate." You could smile. It's a gala, Thomas. It's supposed to be fun. It's not fun. It's a networking obligation held by the Harrison Group. I need 10 minutes with their VP of operations to bypass a tariff dispute in the North Sea. I'm not there to dance. She pulled away, turning to face me. The shift in her posture was immediate. Shoulders dropped, chin up. She was looking for a fight to burn off the pre-event adrenaline. "You always do this," she said. "You treat everything like a military operation." Because it is. Tonight cost me 5 hours. My hourly rate, blended with the opportunity cost of the Asian markets opening while we're at dinner, puts this evening at a valuation of roughly $12,000. I intend to get a return on that investment. She rolled her eyes. "You're romantic. I'm solvent." I check my watch. Patek Philippe. Reliable. The car is downstairs. We move in 3 minutes. I walked out. I didn't wait for her to agree. If you wait for consensus on a timeline, you miss the window. The car was an Escalade, black on black. I hired a private service, not Uber. Uber creates variables, chatty drivers, dirty seats, unpredictable routes. My driver, Yusuf, knows the protocol, absolute silence unless the ETA changes by more than 5 minutes. Vanessa slid into the seat, arranging the green silk around her legs. She immediately took out her phone. The blue light illuminated her face, highlighting the tension in her jaw. She was scrolling through Instagram, checking the geotag for the Pierre Hotel. She wanted to see who was already there. She was benchmarking her competition. My phone buzzed. Single vibration. Priority alert. I checked it. An email from our freight forwarder in Rotterdam. The dock workers were threatening a wildcat strike starting at midnight local time. I had 40 containers of automotive microchips sitting on a vessel that was supposed to dock in 6 hours. If they struck, that inventory would be frozen for weeks. The penalties alone would wipe out the quarter's margin. I typed a reply: reroute to Antwerp. Pay the fuel surcharge. Do not wait for confirmation. Who is it? Vanessa asked. She hadn't looked up from her phone. Work. It's always work. Can you put it away? We aren't even there yet. If I put it away, the supply chain for a mid-sized German auto manufacturer halts. I'll be done in 30 seconds. She sighed, a sharp exhalation through her nose. It was the sound of a woman realizing she was not the primary focus of the evening. This is the core friction of our dynamic. Vanessa operates on a validation economy. She needs constant feedback loops to verify her status. I operate on a logic economy. I solve problems. When there are no problems, I am silent. She interprets silence as withdrawal. You know, she said, locking her phone and dropping it into her clutch. Kyle manages a hedge fund, and he doesn't check his email at dinner. Kyle manages other people's bets. I move physical assets. Physics doesn't stop for dinner. You think you're so important. I think I'm responsible. There is a difference. I put the phone away. The crisis was diverted for now. Rerouting to Antwerp would cost us 12% on the margin, but it maintained the schedule. Reliability is the product. I looked at her. In the dim light of the passing street lamps, she looked stunning. That's the objective truth. She spends 3 hours a day in the gym and follows a diet that would starve a rabbit. It requires discipline. I respect the discipline, even if the motivation, vanity, is flimsy. You look good, I said. It wasn't a compliment. It was an assessment. She softened, but only slightly. Do I? Yes. The dress works. It's aggressive. Aggressive. It commands space. That's good. Tonight is about presence. We need to be seen. We need to circulate. And then I need to close the Harrison conversation. And then what? And then we can go. I mean, what about us? Are we going to have fun? Are you going to dance with me? Or am I just a prop while you talk about shipping containers? You are not a prop, Vanessa. You are my partner. But understand the environment we are entering. This isn't a club. It's a Shark Tank with better catering. Everyone in that room wants something. Capital. Access. Information. If we go in there looking like tourists, we get eaten. If we go in there looking like operators, we eat. She turned her head to look out the window. You make everything sound so exhausting. Reality is exhausting. The alternative is poverty. The car slowed. We were approaching the pier. The line of black SUVs extended around the block. The bottleneck. We're walking from here, I said. In these heels? It's freezing. It's 50 feet. Sitting in this line will take 20 minutes. That's 20 minutes of standing time inside lost. I opened the door before the driver could stop. The cold air rushed in. November in New York. It keeps the weak inside. I offer my hand to Vanessa. She looked at it, then at the sidewalk, then took it. Her grip was tight. We walked the 50 feet to the canopy. The paparazzi were pinned in behind velvet ropes, flashing bulbs at anyone who looked remotely famous. They ignored me. They snapped 3 frames of Vanessa. She instinctively angled her hip, chin down. She fed off it. Her mood elevated instantly. The drug of attention was administered. The ballroom was a cavern of gilded molding and crystal chandeliers. It smelled of expensive perfume, roast beef, and anxiety. The acoustics were terrible, a wash of white noise that required you to lean in to hear anything, forcing artificial intimacy. We moved through the checkpoint. Coat check. Name badges. I didn't wear mine. If you need a name badge to be recognized, you don't belong in the high-leverage conversations. Vanessa pinned hers to her clutch. Champagne, she said. It wasn't a request. I scanned the room. The layout was standard. bar in the corner to create a traffic jam, buffet along the wall to occupy the grazers, tables in the center for the donors. The power players would be on the periphery, standing, not sitting. You don't sit when you're working. I spotted Harrison. He was near the north exit, surrounded by 3 sycophants. He looked bored. Good. A bored man is easier to pitch than a busy one. I signaled a waiter, took 2 flutes of champagne. I handed one to Vanessa. Rules of engagement, I said, leaning close to her ear. Oh God, here we go. 1. Do not get drunk. 2 glasses max. 2. Do not talk about your job unless asked. If asked, keep it to 2 sentences. 3. If I step away, do not look lost. Check your phone, go to the bathroom, or talk to the wives. Do not stand alone looking at the ceiling. I know how to behave, Thomas. I'm not a child. Then don't act like one. Stick to the plan. We began the circuit. We walked the perimeter. This is necessary theater. You have to be seen by the low-level people, so the rumor spreads that you are in the building. We stopped for small talk with a couple I knew from the yacht club. The husband was in commercial real estate. The wife was on the board of the charity. Thomas, good to see you, the husband said. His grip was moist. Stress. The commercial real estate market was tanking. He was probably underwater on 3 developments. Jim, you look well. Surviving, you know. Just surviving. You know Vanessa. Lovely dress, Jim's wife said. Her eyes scanned the seams, looking for a label, calculating the cost. Thank you, Vanessa said. She beamed. Thomas picked it out. A lie, but a useful one. It painted me as attentive. I squeezed her waist lightly. Positive reinforcement. We moved on. After 20 minutes of social lubrication, I saw my opening. Harrison's circle had thinned. He was looking for an escape. I need to move, I told Vanessa. Stay here. Talk to. I scanned the immediate area. Talk to the group by the pillar. That's the wife of the CEO of Omnicorp. Good connection for you. Fine. Don't take all night. 10 minutes. I left her. I didn't look back. You cannot show hesitation. I intercepted Harrison as he was turning toward the bar. Harrison, I said. No handshake yet. I invaded his personal space just enough to force acknowledgement. Thomas, didn't know you were on the list. I'm not. I'm here to save you 4% on your logistics overhead. He stopped. He smiled, a tight, reptilian expression. Always selling. Always closing. The redundancy in the Bristol Channel is killing your margins. I saw the quarterly report. You're bleeding out on wait times. And you have a tourniquet? I have a route through Liverpool and a contract with a rail line that bypasses the Union blockade. I can implement it by Tuesday. He looked at me. The boredom vanished. This was the transaction. Walk with me, he said. We moved to the corner of the room. We spent 15 minutes dissecting the supply chain architecture. It was beautiful, pure logic. No emotions, no ego, just numbers and geography. I was in my element. I was fixing the machine. I secured the follow-up meeting. The handshake was firm. The deal was effectively done, pending legal review. I had justified the cost of the tuxedo and the ticket in under 20 minutes. I turned back to the room. The noise seemed louder now. The alcohol was kicking in. The polite veneer was thinning. I scanned for the green dress. I didn't see her at the pillar where I'd left her. I did a grid search. Visual sweeps left to right. I found her near the main bar. She wasn't with the Omnicorp wife. She was with a man. He was young, late 20s. He was wearing a suit that fit poorly, too tight in the shoulders, the trousers hemmed too high. Trendy, not timeless. He had the hungry, desperate look of an associate trying to punch above his weight class. Vanessa was leaning against the bar. Her body language was open. Too open. She was facing him fully, ignoring the rest of the room. She was holding her champagne glass by the stem, swirling it. I watched. She laughed. It was a sharp, performative sound. She threw her head back, exposing the line of her throat. It was a gesture she used when she wanted to signal submission or availability. Then she touched him. She reached out and placed her hand on his forearm. She didn't tap him. She let it rest there. Her fingers trailed down to his wrist. The kid, Miller, I remembered his name now, a junior analyst at a competing firm, looked like he had just won the lottery. He stood up straighter. He puffed out his chest. He was misinterpreting her boredom as genuine interest. Then came the look. Vanessa turned her head. She scanned the room, hunting. Her eyes found mine across the 50 feet of crowded ballroom. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She held eye contact. Then, without breaking the gaze, she leaned in closer to Miller. She whispered something in his ear. Miller laughed, a nervous spraying sound. I stood perfectly still. It was a shit test. A crude, high school-level provocation. She felt ignored because I had prioritized a multi-million-dollar contract over holding her hand for 15 minutes. So, she was manufacturing a crisis. She was creating a scenario where I would be forced to intervene, to claim her, to display jealousy. She wanted me to storm over her. She wanted the kinetic energy of a confrontation. She wanted to feel valuable enough to cause a scene. It was a miscalculation of my character. I don't play games that have negative expected value. Storming over there would make me look insecure and make her look cheap. It would lower my status in the room. Harrison was still nearby. If he saw me fighting over a woman with a junior associate, he would question my judgment. I checked my internal emotional state. Was I angry? No. Anger implies surprise. I wasn't surprised. I was disappointed in her lack of strategic foresight. She was damaging her own brand. I made a decision. I turned my back on her. I saw the VP of operations from the target firm, a man named Evans, standing near the buffet. I walked toward him. I could feel Vanessa's gaze burning into the back of my neck. She was waiting for the reaction. She was waiting for the explosion. I gave her nothing. Evans, I said, coming up beside him. He was eating a shrimp cocktail with surgical precision. Thomas, good to see you. The Liverpool route, I said. We need to discuss the rail integration. I forced myself to focus. The part of my brain that is a biological male wanted to go over there and break Miller's jaw. That is the lizard brain. It is useful for survival in the wild. It is a liability in a ballroom. I suppressed it. I routed the energy into the conversation. We spoke for 10 minutes. I kept my back to the bar. I refused to check. This is the discipline. If you look, you validate the behavior. You show that it's working. You have to starve the fire of oxygen. The unions are going to push back on the night shifts, Evans said. Let them push, I replied. We increased the overtime rate by 15%. It's cheaper than the tariff. You've run the numbers? I always run the numbers. I checked my watch. Sufficient time had passed. The punishment of my indifference needed to be long enough to induce anxiety, but not so long that she actually did something irreversible like leaving with him. Excuse me, Evans. I need to check on my better half. Of course. I turned. The scene had changed. Vanessa was still at the bar, but the dynamic had shifted. Miller was still talking, but he looked sweaty. He was running out of material. He had likely exhausted his 3 interesting anecdotes. Vanessa looked brittle. Her smile was fixed, plaster-like. She was glancing around the room, her eyes darting. She wasn't having fun anymore. She was realizing that her gamble hadn't paid off. I hadn't come running. Now she was stuck in a conversation with a boring man, holding a warm glass of champagne, feeling foolish. She saw me looking. She raised her eyebrows, a silent challenge. Are you coming or not? I looked at her. I gave her a flat, neutral look. Then I looked at the terrace doors. I nodded once toward the doors. Meet me there. I didn't wait for confirmation. I walked to the terrace. The terrace was empty. It was paved with cold stone and lined with potted manicured trees that looked half dead in the winter air. The noise of the city was a low roar below us. I walked to the stone balustrade and set my glass down. I took a breath of the freezing air. It cleared the lungs. I waited. If she didn't come, the night was over. I would leave alone. That was the stakes. I had to be willing to walk away. 2 minutes later, the heavy glass door opened. Click, 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 heels on stone. I didn't turn around. I looked out at the park, a black void in the center of the city lights. "You're unbelievable," she said. Her voice was high-tight. The vocal cords were constricted by stress. I took a sip of my drink. "I am consistent. There is a difference. You saw him. I saw a man in a cheap suit trying to network. Yes. Don't play dumb, Thomas. He was hitting on me. Aggressively. For 20 minutes. I turned slowly. She was standing 5 feet away. She was shivering. The dress offered zero thermal protection. She had her arms wrapped around herself. Her eyes were wet, not tears, but the glassy sheen of frustration. And I asked, "And?" "You did nothing. You looked right at us, and then you turned around and talked to Evans about God knows what. Logistics. Correct. You're my boyfriend, Thomas. You're supposed to care. You're supposed to step in. Step in and do what? Puff my chest out? Mark my territory? Yes. That's what men do. Boys do that," I said. "Men assess threats. He was not a threat. He asked for my number. Did you give it to him? That's not the point." She stomped her foot. A childish gesture. "The point is that you didn't know if I would. You acted like you didn't care if I went home with him. I don't care if you go home with him." The silence that followed that sentence was absolute. The city noise seemed to drop away. She stared at me, mouth slightly open. The shock hit her physically. She took a half step back. "You don't care?" Her voice cracked. "Vanessa, listen to me." I kept my voice low level. No shouting. I operate on logic. If you want to be with a junior associate who leases a 3 Series BMW and lives in a studio apartment in Murray Hill, that is your prerogative. I cannot stop you. If that is the life you want, you are free to take it. I don't want that. Then why are you auditing for the position? She blinked. "What? You were auditioning," I said. I stepped closer. "You were signaling availability. You were laughing too loud. You were touching him. You were looking at me to make sure I saw you touching him. That is the behavior of a woman who is on the market. I was trying to get your attention. By lowering your value?" I stopped 2 feet from her. I could smell the alcohol on her breath. In this world, the world of the people inside that room, value is determined by scarcity and exclusivity, I said. A high-value woman commands respect. She is polite, she is charming, but she is inaccessible. She does not beg for attention from subordinates to validate her ego. She looked down. The fight was draining out of her. The cold logic was cutting through the emotional fog. I felt like you forgot I was there. "I never forget where my assets are," I said. "I knew exactly where you were. I knew exactly what you were doing. And I knew exactly why you were doing it. It was a tantrum." She looked up, eyes flashing again. "I'm not a child." "Then stop acting like one. You try to make me jealous." Jealousy implies that I am worried the competition is better than me. Miller is not competition. He is a distraction. You using him to provoke me doesn't make me want to fight for you. It makes me question whether you are mature enough to be at my side in a room like this. She shivered violently this time. The cold was setting in. "So that's it? You just think I'm cheap. I think you acted cheaply tonight. There is a distinction. You can correct it." "Ow!" "First, we define the reality. If you want to leave with him, say the word. I will call you an Uber Black. I will pay for it. You can go. I will finish my business here and go home alone. No anger, no drama. Just a transaction concluding." I held her gaze. I offered her the out. "I don't want to go with him," she whispered. "Are you sure? He gave you attention. That's what you wanted. I want your attention. Then earn it. Don't demand it by acting out." I took off my tuxedo jacket. The silk lining was warm. I draped it over her shoulders. She grabbed the lapels instantly, pulling it tight. It engulfed her. She looked small inside the structure of my clothes. "Here is the resolution," I said. "You're going to go to the ladies' room. You're going to fix your eyeliner, which is smudged. You're going to compose yourself. Then you're going to come back out. You're going to take my arm, and you're going to smile at the donors. You will not touch another man tonight. You will be the classiest woman in the room. Can you execute that?" She nodded. She looked at me, and for the first time all night, the look was genuine. It was respect. She realized that I wasn't controlling her. I was upholding a standard that she claimed she wanted. "I'm sorry, Thomas. Don't apologize. Just improve." "Okay, go." She turned and walked back toward the doors. She walked differently now. The frantic, attention-seeking strut was gone. She moved with gravity. She had the jacket over her shoulders, a visual symbol that she was spoken for, that she was protected, that she was off the market. I watched her leave. I picked up my drink. The ice had melted, diluting the scotch. I drank it anyway. I felt my heart rate. It was steady at 60 beats per minute. The crisis was managed. The asset was secured. The night could continue. I looked at my phone. Another email from Rotterdam. Union reps asking for 18% increase. I typed back. Offer 12% and a signing bonus. Close it tonight. I put the phone away and walked back into the warmth. The temperature differential between the terrace and the ballroom was 30 degrees. I stepped back inside, and the heat hit me, body heat, halogen lights, friction. The noise was a wall of sound. I adjusted my cuffs. I checked the room. The first priority was ensuring the containment field held. I needed to verify that the interaction with Miller was fully neutralized before Vanessa returned. A loose end is a liability. I found Miller near the raw bar. He was alone, staring into a half-empty glass of gin. He looked rattled. He had been flown too close to the sun, and now he was crashing. I walked up to him. I didn't approach from the side. I approached from the front, blocking his line of sight to the rest of the room. "Miller," I said. He jumped. Gin sloshed over the rim of his glass onto his hand. He looked up, eyes widening when he recognized me. "Mr. Sterling," he stammered. He wiped his wet hand on his trousers. "A rookie mistake. I didn't know you were." "We haven't met properly," I said. I didn't offer my hand. "I'm Thomas Sterling. I run the logistics merger for the Harrison Group." "Right. Yes. I know who you are. Everyone knows. You were speaking with Vanessa." He paled. The blood drained out of his face so fast it was almost impressive. "Look, sir, I didn't know." She didn't say. "Relax," I said. My voice was flat. "I'm not here to fire you. I'm here to give you a piece of advice that will save your career." He froze, waiting. "Vanessa requires a high degree of maintenance," I said. "She gets bored at these events. When she gets bored, she seeks entertainment. Tonight, you are the entertainment. Don't mistake attention for intention. She was using you to pass the time." It was a brutal simplification, but it was necessary. I needed to crush any lingering fantasy in his head that he had a chance. Hope makes people stupid. Reality makes them compliant. Miller swallowed hard. He looked down at his shoes. "I understand." "Good. Also, fix your tie. The knot is slipping. You look like you've been working a double shift at a call center." I walked away. I didn't wait for a response. I felt the tension in the room shift. Miller was no longer a variable. He was a statistic. I took a position near the entrance to the ladies' room. I stood with my back to the wall, checking my email. The strike in Rotterdam was confirmed. The rerouting to Antwerp was in progress. The cost basis for the shipment had increased by $14,000, but the delivery timeline remained intact. Acceptable variance. The door opened. Vanessa stepped out. She had executed my instructions. The lipstick was precise. The smudges were gone. Her hair was smoothed back. She had removed the desperate, frantic energy she had been projecting earlier. She stood taller. She saw me. She didn't smile. She walked straight to me. "My jacket," I said. She slipped it off her shoulders. I took it, put it back on, and buttoned it. The transfer of warmth was subtle. The silk lining was still heated from her skin. "How do I look?" she asked. Her voice was steady. "You look like you belong here," I said. "Which is the requirement. I'm ready to leave when you are." "Not yet. We have 45 minutes. I need to solidify the Harrison deal. You're going to come with me. You're going to stand by my side. You're going to smile at Harrison's wife. You will listen, and you will not interrupt." "Understood." She hooked her arm through mine. This time, there was no performative squeezing, no clawing for attention. It was a firm, grounding grip. She was anchoring herself to me. We moved back into the center of the room. Harrison was at a high-top table near the orchestra, holding court. He was with his wife, Eleanor, and his chief financial officer, a man named Weiss. Weiss was the obstacle. He was a bottom-line hawk who viewed logistics as a commodity to be bought at the lowest price, regardless of reliability. I approached the table. "Harrison," I said. "Eleanor, you look radiant tonight." Eleanor Harrison smiled. She was a woman of 60 who respected old-world manners. "Thomas, and this must be Vanessa. I've heard so much." Vanessa smiled. It was the right smile, warm, respectful, deferential. "It's a pleasure, Mrs. Harrison. The gala is stunning." "It's a dreadful bore, isn't it?" Eleanor laughed. "But the flowers are nice." While the women engaged in the mandatory social ritual, I turned my attention to the men. "Weiss," I said. "Sterling." Weiss didn't smile. He held his drink like a weapon. "Harrison tells me you think you can beat the mayor's contract." "I don't think. I know. Maersk is giving us volume discounts that you can't touch," Weiss said. "Why would we switch to a boutique logistics firm? You don't have the scale." "Scale is a liability when the system shocks," I said. I stepped into the circle, cutting out the ambient noise. Maersk is routing everything through the standard hubs. Rotterdam, Hamburg, Felixstowe. Have you checked the wire in the last hour? Weiss frowned. "No. Rotterdam is shut down. Wildcat strike. Started 40 minutes ago. It'll hit the news cycle in the morning." Harrison looked at me. "Is that confirmed?" "My people are on the ground. The cranes are stopped. If your inventory is on a Maersk vessel heading for Rotterdam, it's going to be sitting at anchor for 3 weeks. You'll miss the Q4 delivery window for the automotive sector." Weiss pulled out his phone, tapping furiously. "My ships aren't going to Rotterdam," I continued. "I rerouted everything to Antwerp and Liverpool an hour ago. I have rail capacity booked from Liverpool to the Midlands. If you sign with me, your supply chain is fluid. If you stay with a volume discount, you save 4% on shipping and lose 30% on late penalties." I let the math hang in the air. Weiss looked up from his phone. His face was gray. Bloomberg just flashed it. Rotterdam dockworkers walk out. Harrison turned to Weiss. "How much exposure do we have?" 40% of the winter catalog, Weiss muttered. Harrison looked back at me. The boredom was gone. Now, he looked at me like I was a lifeboat in a freezing ocean. "Can you absorb our capacity?" Harrison asked. "I can take 30% of it immediately. The rest will require a premium to bump my other clients. But I can get it done." "Do it," Harrison said. "Call my office at 8 a.m. Weiss will have the paperwork ready." "Done." I didn't smile. I didn't high-five. I nodded. This is the job. You see the train wreck before it happens, and you sell the ticket to the only bridge that isn't broken. I felt a squeeze on my arm. I looked down. Vanessa was looking at me. Her eyes were wide. She had heard the exchange. She didn't understand the logistics, but she understood the power dynamic. She saw me dismantle a CFO and secure a multi-million-dollar contract in under 2 minutes without raising my voice. This was the aphrodisiac. Competence. "Gentlemen, Eleanor," I said, Enjoy the evening. We walked away. That was incredible, Vanessa whispered as we moved toward the coat check. It was standard procedure. No, the way you knew about the strike before they did. Information is the only currency that matters, Vanessa. Money is just a way to keep score. We reached the coat check. The attendant retrieved my cashmere overcoat and her fur stole. I tipped the girl $20. Overpaying for service ensures they remember you next time. We walked out to the curb. The air was even colder now. The wind cut through the canyon of avenues. Yusuf was waiting. The Escalade pulled up the second we stepped onto the concrete. Precision. I opened the door for her. She slid in. I followed. The door clicked shut, sealing us in the quiet, leather-lined capsule. The noise of the city vanished. "Oh, Yusuf," I said. "Yes, sir." I leaned back. The adrenaline of the deal was fading, replaced by the fatigue of social performance. I closed my eyes for a second, recalibrating. Vanessa shifted in the seat. She moved closer. She didn't say anything. She just closed the physical gap between us. She rested her head on my shoulder. I didn't push her away. I didn't embrace her. I let her stay there. "I'm sorry about earlier," she said softly. "We discussed it. It's resolved. I know. I saw you tonight. Really saw you. You're on a different level than those people. I'm focused. Most people are drifting." She put her hand on my thigh. It wasn't sexual, not yet. It was possessive. She was checking to see if the territory was still hers. "I don't want to be drifting," she said. "Then anchor yourself." I covered her hand with mine. I didn't squeeze. I just held it there. Acknowledgement. The car moved smoothly up Park Avenue. The streetlights created a rhythmic strobing effect inside the cabin. Light, dark, light, dark. I thought about the Miller kid. He would wake up tomorrow with a hangover and a vague sense of shame. He would stay an associate for 5 years, then burn out and move to a second-tier firm in Connecticut. I thought about Harrison. He would get his bonus because I saved his supply chain. He would think he was a genius for hiring me. I thought about Vanessa. She was high maintenance, insecure, and prone to volatility. But she was also beautiful, socially capable when properly directed. And tonight, she had learned a lesson in hierarchy. The cost of the lesson was high, but the ROI looked promising. The elevator opened directly into the foyer. The apartment was dark, the city lights providing the only illumination through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I dropped my keys in the bowl, metal on ceramic. Vanessa walked past me. She went straight to the bedroom. She didn't wait for me. I walked to the kitchen. I poured a glass of water. Hydration is essential after alcohol and stress. I drank it standing up, looking out at the East River. The water was black, moving fast. I walked to the bedroom. Vanessa was standing by the bed. She had unzipped the green dress. It lay in a pool of silk on the floor. She was wearing nothing but her heels and sheer stockings. She wasn't posing. She was waiting. She looked at me. There was no defiance in her eyes now. There was expectation. "Come here," I said. She crossed the room. She moved differently than she had at the party. No hip sway, no performance. Just a direct line from point A to point B. She stopped in front of me. She reached out and began to undo my tie. Her fingers were steady. She pulled the silk strip free and dropped it. She unbuttoned my shirt. I watched her face. She was focused. She was treating this like a task that needed to be executed perfectly. "You were right," she whispered. "About what?" "Everything. I don't want a boy. I don't want to be validated by someone who doesn't matter." She pushed the shirt off my shoulders. She ran her hands down my chest. "I want you." I grabbed her hair, pulling her head back gently but firmly. I exposed her neck. I looked at her. "Then you have to understand the terms," I said. "I don't compete. I don't beg. And I don't share." "I know," she gasped. "I know." I kissed her. It wasn't soft. It was acclaiming. It was the physical ratification of the contract we had negotiated on the terrace. The The sex that followed was efficient. It wasn't about romance. It was about re-establishing the polarity. She needed to feel dominated to feel safe. She needed to know that the man she was with was capable of controlling not just the environment, but her. I controlled the pace. I controlled the angles. I watched her unravel. When she climaxed, she cried out, a sharp, desperate sound that had nothing to do with the polite laughter she used at parties. It was honest. Afterward, we lay in the dark. The room was cool. She fell asleep almost immediately, her body curled against my side, heavy with exhaustion. I lay awake for another 20 minutes. My mind was already moving to the next day. The 8 a.m. call with Harrison's office. The logistics of the rail transfer in Liverpool. The meeting with the tax attorneys at noon. I looked at Vanessa. She was breathing deeply. The shit test was a diagnostic tool. It revealed a structural weakness in the relationship, her insecurity. I had patched the weakness with a display of dominance and competence. The patch would hold for a while, but maintenance is never finished. Entropy is the natural state of a universe. Things fall apart if you stop applying force. I closed my eyes. System stable. My internal clock woke me before the alarm. 6 a.m. Standard. I got out of bed without waking her. I moved silently. The bathroom floor was cold. I showered. Cold water for the last 30 seconds to close the pores and sharpen the nervous system. I shaved. The face looking back at me in the mirror was the same as it was yesterday. No bags under the eyes. No sign of the alcohol. Recovery is a discipline. I dressed. Charcoal suit. White shirt. No tie yet. I went to the kitchen. The coffee machine was programmed to start at 6:05. The pot was full. I poured a cup and opened my laptop. 3 emails from Evans. The rail contracts were signed. The first shipment was already moving out of the bonded warehouse in Antwerp. Efficient. I heard soft footsteps. Vanessa walked into the kitchen. She was wearing one of my t-shirts. It hung to her knees. Her hair was messy. She looked soft, vulnerable. She walked over to me and wrapped her arms around my waist from behind. She rested her cheek on my back. "You're up early," she mumbled. "The market doesn't sleep." "Thank you for last night," she said. "For which part?" "For not letting me ruin it." "For handling me." I turned in the chair. I looked at her. "You're an asset, Vanessa. I protect my assets." She smiled. It was a sleepy, genuine smile. "You're such an asshole." "I'm effective. Coming back to bed?" "No. I have a call in 45 minutes. Go back to sleep. You have a brunch at 11 o'clock with the PR team, don't you?" "Yeah." She sighed. "Back to the grind. Grind implies friction. If you're good at it, it should glide." She kissed me on the cheek. "Okay. See you tonight. Dinner at 8 o'clock. I made a reservation at Le Cuckoo. With a black dress." "Yes, sir." She turned and walked back to the bedroom. I watched her go. The dynamic was reset. The hierarchy was clear. She was happy because she knew where the boundaries were. I was happy because the distraction was removed. I turned back to the laptop. I opened the spreadsheet for the Q1 projections. The numbers were good. The calm lasted 14 days. In my experience, that is the standard half-life of social correction. I was in my office. Corner suite, Midtown, 42nd floor. The view is of other skyscrapers. It reminds you that you're just one node in a massive, indifferent network. My secretary, Karen, buzzed in. "Mr. Sterling, you have a visitor." "No appointment." "Who is it?" "A Mr. Weiss. From the Harrison Group." I paused. Weiss. The CFO I had humiliated at the gala. He wasn't coming here to thank me. He was coming here to counterattack. "Send him in." I closed the laptop. I cleared the desk. A clean desk is a power move. It shows you have nothing to hide and nothing to do but focus on the person in front of you. Weiss walked in. He looked better than he had at the gala. He was wearing a bespoke suit, navy pinstripe. He carried a leather briefcase. "Sterling," he said. "Weiss, to what do I owe the pleasure?" "The invoices aren't due for another 10 days. This isn't about invoices." He sat down without being asked. Aggressive. "This is about the long term." "I'm listening." "You made me look like an amateur in front of Harrison," Weiss said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "I stated facts. You were unaware of the strike." "I was aware." "That's not personal, Weiss. That's operational latency. You cost me face. In my world, face is capital. And you're here to, what? Demand an apology?" "No. I'm here to make you an offer." He placed the briefcase on his lap and clicked the latches. "Harrison is looking to retire in 2 years," Weiss said. "When he goes, the CEO spot opens up. I intend to take it." "Congratulations." "What does that have to do with me?" "I need a COO who understands the plumbing. Someone who can handle the messy parts of the business, the unions, the shipping lanes, the strikes. Someone cold." He looked at me. "I want to acquire your firm," Weiss said. "We bring you in-house. You become VP of logistics for the entire Harrison Group. You get equity. You get a golden parachute. And you report to me." I didn't blink. It was a trap. If I sold to Harrison, I lost my autonomy. I became an employee, and I would report to a man who hated me. He would bring me in, use my systems to fix his problems, and then fire me 6 months later for cultural incompatibility. "The offer?" I asked. $12 million. Cash in stock. It was a lowball. My firm was doing $4 million in EBITDA. A 3x multiple was an insult. "No," I said. "It's a generous offer, Sterling. You're a boutique shop. 1 bad quarter, and you're done." "I don't have bad quarters." "Everyone has bad quarters." Weiss smiled. It was a nasty smile, especially when they start having personnel issues. "Is that a threat?" "It's an observation. By the way, how is Vanessa?" The air in the room changed pressure. "Leave her out of this," I said. "I saw her at lunch yesterday," Weiss said. "At the Regency. She was having a drink with a photographer. Scruffy guy. Looked like the creative type. She seemed animated." He stood up. "Think about the offer, Thomas. You're a smart man. You know how leverage works. Right now, you're independent. But independence is lonely. And it's dangerous." He dropped a business card on my desk. "You have 48 hours. He walked out. I sat there for a long time. Weiss was trying to squeeze me. He was using 2 levers, the buyout offer and the implication that he was watching Vanessa. He was trying to destabilize my base. I picked up the card. I tore it in half and dropped it in the wastebasket. Then I picked up my phone. I didn't call Vanessa. Calling her to check in would be a sign of weakness. It would show that Weiss had gotten to me. I called my private investigator, a man named Roth who used to work for the Mossad. "Roth," I said, "go. I need a full workup on a man named Weiss, CFO of Harrison Group. I want his financials, his emails, and his vices. Especially his vices. Timeline, yesterday. It'll cost you. Bill me." I hung up. Then I checked the time. 11:45 a.m. Vanessa was at a shoot for a client. I opened my calendar. I had a lunch gap. I stood up. If Weiss wanted to play 3D chess, I would flip the board. But first, I needed to verify the integrity of my perimeter. I walked out of the office. "Karen," I said, "cancel my afternoon. Everything. I have to inspect the site." I took the elevator down. I wasn't going to a warehouse. I was going to the Regency. It was time to do my own surveillance. The Regency Bar is known as the power breakfast capital of New York, but at lunch, the demographic shifts. It becomes a holding pen for agents, publicists, and the people who live off the margins of the entertainment industry. I walked in. I didn't check my coat. I wasn't staying long. I moved to the far end of the bar, ordering a club soda. I kept my back to the room for the first 30 seconds, using the mirror behind the bottles to scan the reflection. This is basic tradecraft. Direct observation triggers a primal being watched instinct in the subject. Reflection dampens the signal. I found it in a booth near the window. Weiss's intel was accurate. Vanessa was there. She was wearing a cream-colored blouse, silk, high collar, professional but expensive. Across from her sat the scruffy photographer. He was a caricature. Late 30s, messy hair that was carefully styled to look accidental, a scarf worn indoors. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, invading her space. He was talking with his hands, animated, painting a picture in the air. Vanessa was listening, but she wasn't just listening, she was leaning in. Her chin rested on her hand. She was giving him the gaze, that wide-eyed, attentive look she uses when she wants someone to feel important. I watched the mechanics of the interaction. He made a joke. She laughed. She touched her necklace, twisting the gold chain. A grooming gesture. He was selling her something. Not a product, but a narrative. He was likely telling her that she had untapped potential or a unique energy. He was feeding the part of her ego that my structural, logistical approach starved. I provide security and status. He provided the fantasy of being a muse. I took a sip of the soda. Was it infidelity? Not yet. In a court of law, this was a lunch meeting. In a court of relationship dynamics, it was a micro-leak. She was outsourcing her need for validation to a third-party vendor. The vibration in my pocket. My phone. I pulled it out. A text for Vanessa. Running late at the shoot. Client is a nightmare. Might be 20 minutes late for dinner. I looked at the timestamp. 12:22 p.m. I looked at the mirror. She had her phone in her hand under the table. She was typing while smiling at the photographer. She was lying. She wasn't lying about the location. She was technically working, but she was lying about the context. She framed it as a nightmare to garner sympathy and lower my suspicion, while in reality, she was enjoying the attention. This was the shit test, evolving into deception. She was building a parallel narrative where she was the victim of a hard day, expecting me to comfort her later, while currently extracting dopamine from this artist. I had two options. Option A, walk over to the table, introduce myself, shatter the fantasy. This would assert dominance, but also signal that I was threatened. It would validate Weiss's move. It would make me look reactive. Option B, let the scene play out. Gather data. Use the lie as leverage later. I chose option B. I finished the soda. I placed a $20 bill on the bar. I looked at them one last time. The photographer reached out and touched her hand, briefly, ostensibly to emphasize a point. Vanessa didn't pull away immediately. She let it linger for 2 seconds, then withdrew. She was playing with the boundary, testing the fence. I turned and walked out. I returned to the office. The air was sterile, filtered, and sane. Karen, I said as I walked past her desk, get Roth on the secure line. I went into my office and closed the door. The blinds were open. The city looked like a circuit board from this height. The phone rang. Sterling, Roth said. His voice sounded like gravel in a blender. Tell me you have something. Weiss is a boring man, Thomas. He goes to church. He pays his taxes. He cheats on his keto diet, but not his wife. Everyone has a vulnerability. Dig deeper. I did. I looked at the financials. He's leveraged, but manageable. He has 3 mortgages, but his equity covers them. He's not desperate. He came to my office and threatened me. I said, a man with a stable balance sheet doesn't make threats. He makes offers. Threats come from fear. Find the fear. There is one anomaly, Roth said. Go on. His son, Jason Weiss, 22 years old, just graduated from Yale. And Jason just bought a condo in Tribeca for $1 million. Cash. Weiss doesn't have $4 million in liquid cash to give his kid. Exactly. And the deed isn't in Jason's name. It's held by an LLC registered in the Cayman Islands. Apex Holdings. Trace the LLC. I'm trying. But here's the kicker. Apex Holdings is also the primary vendor for a container leasing firm that the Harrison Group uses for their Asia-Pacific routes. I sat up straighter. The pieces clicked into place. Kickbacks, I said. Looks like it, Roth said. Weiss steers the container contracts to Apex at a premium. Apex buys the condo for the kid. It's a wash. Can you prove the link between Weiss and Apex? I need access to the Harrison Group's internal vendor audits. They're on a private server. I can get access, I said. I'm in the middle of a merger with them. I have data room privileges. Be careful, Thomas. If you access those files, you leave a digital footprint. If Weiss sees you looking, he'll know you know. He already knows we're at war. He just doesn't know I have the nuclear codes. I'll send you the IP addresses to look for. Roth out. I hung up. I sat there for a moment, processing. Weiss wasn't just an ambitious CFO. He was a thief. He was skimming off the top of the very supply chain he was paying me to optimize. That's why he wanted to buy my firm. He needed to bring me in-house so he could control the audit trails. If I remained independent, my optimization reports might flag the cost discrepancies in his container leases. He wasn't trying to acquire me to improve the business. He was trying to acquire me to bury the evidence. And he was using Vanessa as a distraction to throw me off balance. I opened my laptop. I logged into the Harrison Group's virtual data room. I didn't go to the vendor files yet. That was too obvious. I downloaded a batch of innocuous shipping manifests to create noise. Then I waited. I arrived home at 7:45. I poured a scotch. I sat in the living room. No music, no TV. Just the sound of the HVAC system humming. At 8:10 p.m., the door opened. Vanessa breezed in. She brought a gust of cold air and floral perfume. God, what a day, she said, dropping her bag on the console table. She looked energized, flushed. Her eyes were bright. That wasn't the look of someone who had battled a nightmare client. That was the look of someone who had been flattered for 3 hours. She walked over to me, leaning down to kiss me. I didn't turn my head, but I didn't lean in either. I let her kiss my cheek. You smell like smoke, I said. She pulled back, sniffing her sleeve. Oh yeah, the photographer. He smokes like a chimney. Disgusting. I thought the client was the problem. They were both problems. The client hated the lighting. The photographer was being a diva. I spent 4 hours playing diplomat. She kicked off her heels and flopped onto the sofa next to me. Pour me one, she asked, gesturing to the scotch. Get it yourself. She paused. She looked at me. The tone wasn't playful. It was instructional. Okay, she said slowly. She got up, went to the bar cart, and poured a drink. She sensed a shift in the atmosphere. She was calibrating. She sat back down, leaving a foot of space between us. Is everything okay? She asked. Weiss came to my office today. The CFO guy? Yes. He offered to buy my company. Thomas, that's amazing. She beamed. That's huge, isn't it? That's a lot of money. It was a lowball offer. I rejected it. Oh, her face fell. Why? You could have negotiated. Because he didn't come to buy the company. He came to threaten me. Threaten you? With what? I turned to look at her. I pinned her with a gaze that was entirely devoid of warmth. He told me he's been watching you. Vanessa froze. The glass stopped halfway to her mouth. What? He told me he saw you having lunch with a scruffy photographer. He implied that you were entertaining other options. That creep. She slammed the glass down on the coaster. I was working. That was Julian. He's the photographer for the shoot. I know. So why are you looking at me like that? You know I was working. I know you were at the Regency. I said. I know you were there for 2 hours. I know you texted me, saying it was a nightmare while you were laughing at his jokes. Her mouth opened, then closed. The color rose in her cheeks. You were there? I stopped by. I saw you, and you didn't say hello? I was auditing the situation. Auditing? I'm your girlfriend, not an employee. Then stop acting like a liability. I said. My voice didn't rise. It dropped. You lied to me via text. You created a false narrative to garner sympathy. That is manipulation. I didn't want you to worry. I knew you'd get jealous if I said I was having lunch with Julian. I don't get jealous, Vanessa. I get bored. And lying bores me. She stood up. She was trembling. So what? You think I'm cheating on you? No. I think you were addicted to validation. I think you sat there letting that man sell you a fantasy because it made you feel special. And then you came home to me, the man who actually pays for the reality of your life, and you lied about it. She stared at me. She wanted to scream. She wanted to storm out. But she couldn't, because I was right, and she knew it. The anger she felt was the defense mechanism of someone caught in a low-integrity act. I didn't sleep with him, she whispered. I know. If you had, your bags would be in the hallway. So what happens now? Now, I said, standing up, we go to dinner. You wear the black dress. And you delete Julian's number from your phone. Not because I'm forcing you, but because you need to decide which currency you want to trade in. Cheap attention or real value. I walked past her toward the bedroom. You have 20 minutes. I didn't look back. I heard her sniffle once. Then I heard the sound of her phone unlocking. She was deleting the number. Compliance achieved. The dinner was quiet. Vanessa was subdued, attentive. She was in the penance phase of the cycle. She touched my arm often. She asked about the business. She was trying to rebuild the equity she had burned. I accepted it. I didn't punish her further. The lesson had been delivered. Now, I had to deal with a real threat. I arrived at the office early. I logged back into the Harrison Group data room. I had the IP addresses Roth gave me. I navigated through the labyrinth of folders. Vendor contracts, APAC region, logistics, Apex Holdings. I found it. A container lease agreement signed 3 years ago. The rates were 20% above market average. I scrolled to the signature page. Signed for Harrison Group. Arthur Weiss, CFO. Signed for Apex Holdings. A legible squiggle. I downloaded the document. Then I found the cross-reference. A wire transfer receipt in the miscellaneous expenses folder. A sloppy filing mistake. A transfer of $50,000 to an account in the Caymans associated with Apex. I had the smoking gun, but a smoking gun isn't enough. You need to know where to aim it. I could go to Harrison, the CEO, show him the theft. He would fire Weiss. But that was a linear move. It would create a vacuum. Harrison might hire someone else who was equally difficult, or the scandal might tank the company's stock, hurting the merger value. No, I needed Weiss under control. I didn't want to destroy him. I wanted to own him. I picked up the phone. Karen, call Weiss's office. Tell him I'm accepting his meeting request, but not at my office. Tell him to meet me at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, Terminal 4. Noon. The Navy Yard, sir? It's a construction site. Exactly. It's loud. No recording devices work well there. And it's my turf. The Brooklyn Navy Yard is a graveyard of industry that has been resurrected as a tech hub, but the docks are still gritty. The wind off the East River is brutal. I was standing by a stack of rusted shipping containers. Weiss's car pulled up, a Mercedes S-Class. It looked out of place among the forklifts and potholes. Weiss got out. He was wearing a cashmere coat and a scarf. He looked annoyed. Sterling, he shouted over the sound of a crane operating nearby. What the hell is this? I'm not dragging my shoes through mud to hear you say yes. I didn't bring you here to say yes, I said. I didn't shout. I waited for him to walk closer. He had to pick his way through a puddle. It diminished him. Then why am I here? Weiss demanded, stopping 3 feet from me. I did some reading last night, I said. Interesting literature. The lease agreements for the APAC region. Weiss went still. The wind whipped his scarf, but his body was rigid. I don't know what you're talking about. Apex Holdings, I said. Cayman Islands Registry. Primary beneficiary, Jason Weiss. Weiss's face didn't change color. it turned to stone. He knew the game was over. "You hacked the data room," he said softly. "That's a felony." "It's due diligence," I corrected. "I have a PDF, Weiss. I have the wire transfers. I have the deed to the condo in Tribeca." Weiss looked around. He realized why we were here. No witnesses, no cameras, just the noise of the industry he was stealing from. "What do you want?" Weiss asked. His voice was hollow. "You want to turn me in? Go ahead. Harrison will fire me, but I'll drag you down with me. I'll sue you for corporate espionage." "Inefficient," I said. "Mutually assured destruction helps no one." "Then what?" "I'm rejecting your buyout offer," I said. "My firm stays independent." "Fine." But I continued. "We're going to restructure the deal. You're going to sign the contract for the Liverpool rail integration, and you're going to approve a 15% rate hike for my services starting next quarter." Weiss laughed, a bitter, barking sound. "You want me to pay you more?" "Yes. Call it a consulting fee for keeping your accounting errors private." "And if I refuse?" "Then I email the PDF to Harrison and to the SEC. You go to federal prison, Weiss. Your son loses the condo. Your wife loses the house in Greenwich. You lose everything." He stared at me. He hated me. It radiated off him like heat. But hate is irrelevant. Leverage is all that matters. "And if I sign," he asked, "then the file stays encrypted on a drive that no one will ever see. You keep your job. You keep skimming your little percentage from Apex. I don't care about that. That's between you and your conscience. But when it comes to my logistics, my routes, and my fees, you give me exactly what I want." Weiss looked at the river. He looked at his shoes, which were ruined by the mud. 15%, he muttered, "and complete autonomy. You don't audit my operations. Ever." He looked up, defeated. "Done. Good. Have the papers on my desk by 9 a.m. tomorrow." I turned and walked away. I didn't shake his hand. You don't shake hands with a subordinate. I was back in the car, heading toward Manhattan. The ecosystem was balanced. Vanessa had been corrected. Her shit test had been neutralized, her deception exposed, and her boundaries reset. She would be docile for at least 3 months. Weiss had been acquired. He wasn't an enemy anymore. He was a silent partner. I had leveraged his greed to secure my profit margin. I checked my phone. An email from Rotterdam. The strike was ending. The union had accepted the deal. My ships were already halfway to Antwerp. I would arrive ahead of schedule. I closed my eyes. This is the life. It's not about happiness. Happiness is a fleeting chemical reaction. It's about control. It's about seeing the variables, calculating the vectors, and applying the force necessary to keep the structure standing. "Yusuf," I said. "Sir." "Stop at Cartier on 5th Avenue. "Yes, sir." I needed to buy a bracelet. Not as an apology, never apologize for being right, but as a reward. Positive reinforcement. When a subject performs the desired behavior, deleting the number, accepting the frame, you provide a stimulus to lock it in. A gold bangle. Simple, elegant, permanent. She would love it. She would wear it tonight. She would look at it and remember that she belongs to a man who wins. And that is all she really wants. Thank you for listening. That brings today's story to a close. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. See you next time.